Good morning and welcome to Tucson In Review, a public affairs presentation of Cumulus Media in Tucson. My name is Andy Taylor, and for the next 30 minutes, we're talking about a passion of mine and one that is great for Arizona. On the line with us, we have Elisa Cota Francis, who is the president of Independent Film Arizona, also the CEO of ArcLight Productions, which is here in Tucson. To talk about what filmmaking means to Southern Arizona. And you may have heard about the legislation that has been trying to get passed through to keep production in Southern Arizona. Now, if you look at some of the great films over the years, as a matter of fact, with the passing this past week of actor James Caan, it reminds people of the film El Dorado, 1965, shot at Old Tucson Studios. Of course, the movie starring the legendary John Wayne, Robert Mitchum, and of course, actor James Caan in that film. Such big films were made at Old Tucson and throughout Southern Arizona, and the goal is to bring some of those productions back. We're happy to have Elisa Cota Francis with us on the line. Elisa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Andy. I'm glad to be here.
Tell us, for our listeners, a little bit about what Independent Film Arizona is all about.
So Independent Film Arizona was created in 2005. It is one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the state of Arizona, and our goal is to facilitate independent filmmaking as well as create jobs and really take the talent we have here in Arizona and cultivate it into jobs that can stay here, which with the passage of this new legislation makes it even more possible for that to happen.
When we look at this recent production that many people were excited about, J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot bringing Duster here to Tucson to film the pilot for an HBO series, the fact that while the glitz and glamour is great, the jobs that it creates, because we have so many talented filmmakers and crew, even actors and actresses that are living here in Southern Arizona, this was a great opportunity.
It was, and it will continue to be. When we brought Duster into town, a lot of people don't realize that included our pre-production facility that luckily the amazing mayor that we have now, Regina Romero, and her group facilitated in JJ and Bad Robot, as well as, let's not forget that LaToya Morgan, who is one of the biggest showrunners in Hollywood right now, one of the hottest, if you look her up, who is more than likely probably the showrunner for Duster, they came into town and took a facility that was provided to them by the city of Tucson. So there's a lot of great excitement and a push to get production here. So they really bent over backwards, as did Doug Ducey in the state of Arizona, giving the production an incentive that was through a COVID relief fund that was created by the government to help with economic development and tourism, which is exactly what this helps with. And so Duster came to town and they spent factually $16 million in our city and in the state of Arizona. That's a lot of money. And that's on the conservative side, Andy. That is the direct spending. We're not talking about the indirect spending, the local spending. Duster came into town, and one of the great facilitators was the owner of Monsoon Production Services, Justin Kreinbreck, who has been one of the backbones of the reason we get such consistent work here in Arizona, and he deserves that reputation and the fact that he kept Monsoon Production Services going after it had almost been shuttered. And because of him, he was instrumental in this, as was, Peter Cantalodi with the Tucson Film Office, as well as, like I said, the state of Arizona in enticing the HBO production to go ahead and put down roots here in Tucson. And we already had the amazing crew and cast, as you said. We have a great number of professional folks that work and live here in Southern Arizona who work in New Mexico and also work in California. So the infrastructure when it came to the crew was a lot already based here in Arizona. So it was kind of an easy fit for them to come on in.
Another, thing that's beautiful about Arizona and filmmakers that are attracted to us here is the fact that we're not that far away from, if they're a production house that's based in LA, that we're not that far away. So to bring crew and to bring cast out here is good. But again, we have all that crew here.
We do. And that is actually the hidden secret that I constantly tell people. Arizona is just flush with crew. There are a great deal of crew members that have telephones that ring through a Burbank phone number, but they literally live here in Southern Arizona because we're looking at a 5-hour, 6-hour trip to LA. Yep. We're looking at 4 hours to Las Cruces. So they get the best of both worlds, being able to work in New Mexico, getting able to work in California. But what I will tell you about those crews, Adam Miller, he is a great stunt actor who was also one of the great members of the cast for Duster. He got to work here in Arizona. He loved that. Yep. And it's like I call it old home week. I walk on set and I see so many locals who are just so excited, and we do what we do best. And I will tell you, Andy, we are some of the greatest production crews in the nation.
Absolutely.
We get lauded constantly for how good we are at what we do here in Arizona.
I'll tell you a funny story, Elisa. You might like this. Some years ago, I got the opportunity to talk with Mick Garris. Mick Garris was putting out a box set of these horror DVDs. He's really into that genre. And he was here in Tucson and was the director of a project called Redemption. And I was interviewing him on the phone, and I told him, I said, did you have a good time when you were in Tucson? He says, I did. I loved it so much, I moved there. He actually, at the time we were doing the interview, he had bought a house. He loved it so much. So you get a lot of filmmakers that do make the trek and realize this is just a beautiful place to be that end up moving here.
Absolutely. I know some pretty well-known producers who base out of Tucson also, who always try to, tell me to keep it on the down low, but they fly from Tucson, because we have great regional airports right into Burbank, and they go back and forth, and they're ready to sink money into Tucson. I can tell you for a fact, I have been in touch with one for probably almost 6 years now, who is ready to go. He's already scouted a Western that he's hoping to film, which I'm crossing my fingers, here in Mescal. I'm hoping he's chosen that as his location. And we're talking about a gentleman who makes $500,000 to $1 million movies and does about at least 2 a year, and had a slate of about 5 of them. And like I tell everybody wants to do a Western. I will tell you, Andy, everybody wants to do a Western. And we are perfect for that. And he's super excited. He was one of the first people I let know, hey, I want to let you know the incentive passed. It looks like it's going to be law. But I will tell you this, Andy, and this is what I was told. I am not certain this is fact, but what I was told is that the legislation actually will come into effect in 90 days, which puts us in October, mid-October, when this legislation actually could be implemented. So we're not really looking at a January 1st date. We may be looking at sometime late October that we can start rolling out incentives and bringing productions here to use that incentive. But don't quote me on that. I'm going to relook at the legislation, but from what I was told, it's a 90-day implementation process from the date that it became law.
We're seeing more productions now with so many streaming services. Paramount, you've got, Hulu, you've got all these sources. This is going to be a really good opportunity for Tucson and Southern Arizona to have this business coming into the area, which again, they take up hotel rooms, restaurants, catering that's done. This is going to be a really great opportunity that we could see really expanding the end of this year into next year with this legislation.
Absolutely. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, how much indirect spending gets spent. When Duster was in town, they needed sewing done for costumes and backdrops and things like that. They hired local companies here to do that sewing. So you get a lot of that indirect spending that people forget, that you may not have a direct, lineage. You may not be a catering company, but you could do something indirectly that would allow you to work in the industry. Construction. We're constantly seeing people needing to be on set that have skills to build props, to build these set decorations. So, there is a lot of money to be had. And like I said, that $16 million is a very conservative number. We're looking more along the lines of at least $50 million that was probably spent within our state. including location scouting. I mean, we have to scout these locations. They have to pay people locally who know the areas to come out and take a look and take pictures, get them back to the production. So there's so much more to production than just once they say action and you see the actors behind the camera. There's so much more behind the scenes that happens before that camera even rolls.
For our listeners, Elisa, that don't understand the concept of what this legislation does, how does that work? Because we've seen so much production head off to, let's face it, New Mexico, Louisiana, and other states. And for years that I've been on the radio, I know I've talked about we need a tax incentive. This is the incentive that filmmakers have been asking for. For our listeners that aren't in film, why is this good for the state?
A lot of people don't realize there are actually a great, overwhelming amount of independent productions that happen in the state of Arizona. And when our legislation originally went away, when the incentive went away, a lot of that independent film dried up. We'll be honest. People tried to say that, oh, this stuff would come anyway. No, it won't. It would not come anyway. I will tell you for a fact, there are so many people I speak to. Let's look at how independent film works. There's a whole, I call it the middle class of independent filmmaking that ranges from $500,000 to $50 million.
Right.
That's the middle of the road for independent film. So you have those filmmakers who make money of things you may never see that get released, like you said, on amazing amounts of streaming platforms around the world. You're talking movies that are starring Bruce Willis that you may have never heard of because it's a $40 million movie made by an independent film group, and they get a great return on investment. And I will tell you that $40 million range is kind of the sweet spot of investors that want to come here because they will get that incentive. They will spend money. And that's the misnomer. People think this means that we're just giving out money. We are not just giving out money. These companies are going to come into town. They are going to hire people like my good friend Lily Golson, who is in the G&E department, Grips and Electric, who was hired in the electric department for Duster. And they will come and hire people like Mark Brown, who was also a gaffer who works in lighting. He will then take that money he makes and pour it back directly into the state of Arizona. He will pay his taxes. He will go ahead and buy groceries. He will stay here in the state living and making a living because he can now do that. Because we're not talking about people who make tens of millions. We're talking about people who make a living wage, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a year doing what they love and they're good at. So that is who this legislation is going to help. And that's the honest truth. As much as people want to pretend that it's just helping the wealthy, no, it is helping people like me who have been a production sound mixer for 25 years and worked on a lot of mid-level productions throughout my career.
Absolutely. And some people also don't know about the many different resources when it comes to locations. I mean, we have mountains that have been featured in Firebirds. I remember that movie. You've got The Wraith, which filmed all through Silver Bell, that movie with Charlie Sheen. And you've got Mescal. And Mescal has been doing some really cool things to bring filmmaking here. But some people think that all Westerns were only shot at Old Tucson. Mescal has
I love that you brought this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Andy. I love that you brought this up because I am a big advocate to say, look, I'm so excited that people know Old Tucson. Hey, it's great. It brings people here. But Mescal, everything that was filmed at Old Tucson was also filmed in Mescal.
Exactly.
I tell people constantly about 30% of what you saw on screen that you assume is Old Tucson probably was Mescal, was Marana, was various locations throughout the southern Arizona region. And people don't realize that, Mescal has been one of the biggest backbones of the industry. Gammons Gulch is now doing a lot of independent film. So you get a lot of facilities here that are not just Old Tucson. We have so many other locations that are viable for filming on Mount Lemmon. We've seen so many people film on Mount Lemmon. I mean, we have aspen trees up there. There's 8,000 feet up. You get a whole different climate up there. So we have just the ability to give you a vast different look that you may be thinking, oh, I can only get this in Georgia. Hey, you go to southern Arizona, the San Pedro Valley, you can get that look here in Arizona.
And if you need to have a lake, you've got Patagonia.
Absolutely.
The locations are perfect here. I think Mark Sankey kind of said it best in a post. He said it's important that Arizona residents know that this plan, this legislation, will benefit the entire state, not just individuals involved in film. And we are talking about the benefits for those that work in film, that work on crews, that work, everybody from, Lori Franklin Garcia, who I've worked with on a pilot that we did, to many other people. But it will also involve us as that maybe not working in the industry because they're going to be, again, shopping at our stores, staying in our hotels.
Absolutely. Like I tell people, if you have a company that provides water to construction site, ice and water, you can do that. I was just on a production for Gordon Ramsay is launching a new show based here in the United States. And we were episode 5 of a show that came here to town a couple of months ago. They needed ice. Guess what? A company that provides ice to construction sites left a vat with a cooler running 24/7 right on set for us for those 4 days of filming. And it was just nice to go in there and get fresh bags of ice. And we almost went through that whole trailer. So there you go. You have a company that provides that for construction. Guess what? It worked beautifully for us to be on set with Gordon Ramsay, literally having him drink his drinks right out of that and using that ice from this company here in Southern Arizona. And I know for a fact that's what happened. These are the things that people seem to forget. There's so much there to be had when it comes to being able to help out productions. And I will tell you, the Marana Chamber of Commerce has the only film committee group. It's now called the multimedia group.
Wow.
In the state. The only one, Andy. How do we not
had no
have
idea.
more chambers that have more film groups? So Marana and Rebecca Kozowski, who she's the executive vice president, implemented this group. And this was years ago. I was the first head of that committee because she saw, as I did, there is a future for this. So this incentive didn't just come out of the woodwork. We have been working so hard on this, myself, Laura Cordelue, Rebecca Kozowski, Peter Catnolodi. There has just been so much fuel on the fire to get this incentive passed. So I will tell you, we are beyond excited at what it's going to do for our state, because I will tell you, those negative comments that we see from people, that's all going to change within a year or two, because I will tell you the number, $63 billion has been spent in indirect and direct spending in the state of New Mexico since they started their incentive program. $63 billion.
Somebody once told me that Breaking Bad could have been here because we did not have that incentive. It went there.
But think about this, though. This is what people don't realize. Breaking Bad was just this indie. People didn't know those actors. It was a very low budget, low tier thing. We got something like Duster. Breaking Bad was great, but their budget was maybe $1 million an episode, whereas Duster's $10 million an episode. You know what I mean? So, there's a big difference between what we're attracting. So we're attracting big name productions here, which is great for us.
Do you think that losing Duster to New Mexico because it wasn't able to be done in time, is there a chance that that production could be brought back? And do you think that kind of maybe has propelled Governor Ducey's office to sign this into legislation faster to get this done?
Well, let's all be clear. Ducey did not technically sign this. He used a loophole within our law, which allows a law to go into effect, but he did not veto it. That's the positive of this. He let this legislation come on in, which we're grateful for, and to be implemented to become law. And that's the thing. Now that this is here, I will tell you that one of the biggest reasons Duster decided to move on was because we didn't have an ongoing incentive. But what I will also tell you is there's a lot of stuff going around. HBO just merged with Discovery. So I'm not going to get into the minutia of how mergers work, but there was a lot on the chopping block for J.J. Abrams. So I'm hoping, amongst a lot of other people, that there is a really viable chance that Duster could come back if it does go to, still have to be approved to go to series. But I believe that they spent a great amount of time. They spent a couple of years looking at Arizona, at Tucson specifically, and Las Cruces as production places. And I will tell you that one of the reasons they chose Tucson was because, honestly, New Mexico was booked out. People don't realize that New Mexico is getting so far booked that they're having to turn away productions or tell productions flat out, hey, can you go ahead and just put a pin in that for a little while? So I love the fact that this legislation is now. It means 1 day of less travel from your cast and crew, whatever productions you need to bring into Arizona, they have one full day less of travel. That's one full day less of expense that they would have to in order to film in New Mexico. Now they can come to Arizona, they can get a tax break, and this is just going to get better because we're going to see that money start rolling in. It's going to make a marked difference in what happens here in the state, and I'm super excited about it.
When you look at, say, what Tyler Perry has done in Georgia with, building studios, getting the sound stages up, the whole bit, and then you look, I believe the same thing has happened in Austin. Do you foresee possibly that this could be such a boom that we could see that happening here in southern Arizona?
Here's why I get excited when people bring up Georgia. People don't know. Do you know the big secret in Georgia? They did not have an independent film network there.
Wow.
If you talk to Georgia filmmakers, they're all from out of state. They came into Georgia to film. Guess what we have here in Arizona and have had for the last 100 years? Independent filmmakers who live locally, who built their careers locally. That is the big difference. My feeling is that we will grow faster than Georgia because there's so much here to be had. I know a lot of people get upset because we are a conservative state right now.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, the number 2 revenue-generating films that are making the most money behind all other movies are faith-based, and not even faith-based, but just that generic G rating. We grew up on that.
Yep.
Remember, we got to go see The Goonies. We got to go see E.T. These movies were movies that everybody could see, the general audience. So there's a lot of money to be had for that general admission ticket. And that's where a lot of money will be generated. So there's so much money to be had in this industry right now. And I honestly believe that we will outpace Georgia because we do have filmmakers here locally for the last solidly 50 years who know how to make independent films. I know how to do it. I have taken projects through ArcLight Pictures from beginning to end, full features that are on Prime, that have, gotten distribution. So there's so much talent here. And guess what? We all respect each other. We enjoy working with each other. And we know how to make movies in the state of Arizona. So when productions come into town, they just have already a built-in infrastructure of well-seasoned professionals that are here and have been here for a long time in Arizona.
I want to remind our listeners too, and you mentioned Marana and how they have a film office. You actually created a reel for them at arclightpictures.com on the website.
We did.
And so they can see exactly what filmmakers that want to come to Southern Arizona and want to get to see what's available. Even in Marana, they can do that all on your website. And it's a great looking reel too.
I am so proud at what ArcLight has built. And it hasn't just been me, but my partner, Bobby Francis, who is also an animator, an award-winning director of photography and editor. We built brick by brick that slow and steady wins the race mentality of our goal, and you can ask anybody who knew us in the beginning when we launched ArcLight 6 years ago, was to bring filmmaking back to Southern Arizona.
Yep.
And that was one of my biggest legacies I've been wanting to leave. And so I worked with people like Rebecca Kozowski and Laura Cordellieu and so many amazing people like Justin Kreinbreck who really just did the work, who really just put in the time and the effort to say, hey, we have something here. Just help us build it. Peter Cataneloti came in and became the new head of the film office, and he has been another instrument. And let's not forget that we do have municipalities who are here, not only Marana, but Southern, we have South Tucson.
Yep.
So the acting mayor of South Tucson, he was the one who gave the tours. He brought in Duster to film in South Tucson. He went to his municipality, to his citizens, and said, hey, they're going to come in here and they're going to film. And, what can we do for you? How can we make this easy? And then the fact that there were so many locals filming in South Tucson, we were able to work with the community who was so welcoming and so understanding that we're there at 2 a.m. doing car chases in South Tucson.
That's awesome.
Beautifully done with some incredible equipment. But most of us are locals, getting to talk to fellow locals. That is what really makes the difference. When you say, oh, yeah, I live here. I understand what you're going through. And, hey, can you just sit tight? And we don't mind if you hang out on your porch and watch this, but, just make sure. Everyone just came together
Yep,
And
exactly.
because we have such that open air of like, let's talk about this. And that's one thing that Independent Film Arizona, me along with my vice president, Aaron Benzahofer, we're beginning to talk to other municipalities to say, hey, how can we help your citizens understand what's going on? That way, when a production rolls into town, they're not, wondering what's going to happen. Why can't I go to the store? Why can't I do this? And it's like, no, we're going to let you do all the things that you need to do. You just may need to pause for about 5 minutes while we roll through this shot. But this is your area. You live here, and we're going to make it, accessible to you, just like we did on Gates Pass when they were filming, over there and doing those beautiful shots and down Gates Pass, which are going to be amazing.
Great.
I will tell you.
We have the
so
best
excited.
locations here. We have great locations. I got a friend of mine, Christian Sesma, who makes films, and he just recently finished a shoot in Georgia, and I sent him a note. I said, you know what? We've got a tax incentive coming to Southern Arizona. Hopefully you'll come out and film here. And you just have to hope that it'll happen. With all these productions taking place in so many different genres, whether it be film or television, I guess, honestly, Elisa, the big question is, how do you attract the filmmakers to come here to Arizona to do their project?
I love this question, Andy, because that is actually one of my number one jobs. And I've been the kind of unofficial ambassador until I became the president of Independent Film Arizona last year. And now I can do it, with the breadth of a nonprofit behind me. And I will tell you, oh my gosh, Andy, I'm so excited. I have been networking with filmmakers, not just when I'm on set, but when I'm also, one of the greatest platforms created was Clubhouse. I am in Clubhouse talking to actual filmmakers who are in that middle class, actual investors who invest in $40, $50 million movies who said, hey, Elisa, once that incentive gets passed, you call me. And so you are a list along with numerous people who are like, okay, Elisa, call me. I've got a script.
Nice.
I've got money. The other producer I spoke about not too long ago, who's going to be shooting a Western, hopefully in Mescal, coming this fall. All of that is real money, Andy, real filmmakers who want to come here and film. So when you hear people saying, oh, they would have come here anyway, no, I will tell you for a fact they wouldn't have. And they did go to other states for many years because I was brutally honest and said, hey, I understand that you want to go ahead and make these investments, but you have to go where money's cheap.
Exactly.
You have to go where it's going to work for you. But guess what? Now the doors are open. That also means another thing, Andy, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that when we're in production mode and you get large facilities like Warner and Paramount and all of these large networks, they just want to be able to tell their board, hey, yes, we're going to go to a state that has incentives. So that's the big thing, is like now we're on the list.
Exactly.
Now we're on that list, and that's the key to making the difference, is now we won't be passed up. We have a shot at these productions.
Come to Arizona. We've got some great talent here. They're ready to make some magic happen. That's how it should be. Also to note, to get these tax credits, too, it's really cool that the end of the film, it's got to have in the credits, took place in Arizona. Well, Lisa, we've run out of time, and I got to tell you, I definitely would love to talk to you again around October, and we could see kind of where it stands and what productions are coming to town. In the meantime, I want to thank Mia Schneibel for connecting us. And, Mia's been working so hard on the film festival, which also brings great filmmakers here to have their projects shown and fall in love with Southern Arizona. Can't help beat that. You never know, maybe even bring their next project here. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And a big shout out to the Arizona International Film Festival. It is the longest running festival in the state of Arizona and one of the top festivals within the world. So thanks, Mia and John and everybody on that board for keeping such an amazing, festival going in our wonderful state.
Now, for those that want to become a member of the Independent Film Arizona, if they have an interest, do they have to be a working filmmaker, or can they get more information about it?
No, not at all. We are a 501c3, so your donation actually is included in your membership. So you can come in, you can find out what we're about. We kept the price low because of the pandemic. We're still only $25 for the whole year, Andy. It is phenomenal what you get within that membership. Access to, incredible, We have great Zoom meetings. Our last one was on crowdfunding and how, from a professional who works in the crowdfunding industry for many years and has had successful, crowdfunding campaigns that she has helped with around the world. So things like that you get access to as an Independent Film Arizona member.
And I want to remind our Tucson in Review listeners that you can go to Facebook and you could do a search for Independent Film Arizona and find out more about the group and when their next meeting is going to be taking place. And again, arclightpictures.com. Elisa, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
This has been Tucson in Review, a public affairs presentation of Cumulus Media in Tucson. Thanks for listening. I'm Andy Taylor. Have a great Sunday.